Hello friends, in this video we're discussing the current politics and social psychology of sunny Poland. What's going on here? Let's talk about the government's refusal to forcibly mobilize migrants. Next, we have radical opposition initiatives proposing mass deportations and the creation of deportation centers. Plus, the third topic is the results of recent polls, why Poles don't want to defend Poland, and we'll talk about the psychology of everyday aggression. All the details, facts, and in-depth analysis, just watch the video until the end. Friends, you know what to do. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Now, let's get down to business. We've just received some fresh news from the halls of power in Warsaw. The Polish press is once again abuzz with discussions about what to do with Ukrainian men of conscription age who are in the country, and the reason is more than significant. Sunny Czechia, Poland's neighbor, has already decided to restrict protection status for those with unresolved issues with the military enlistment office. And now the Polish Minister Coordinator of Special Services, Mr. Tomasz Siemoniak, comes out and makes a statement like this, which really upset many patriots, and some were even outraged by such a statement. Warsaw does not plan to introduce such a barrier. There will be no forceful methods, no catching of conscripts by the Polish police and subsequent handing them over to the Ukrainian side. Well, let's break down this logic. On one hand, Mr. Siemoniak quite openly admits an obvious fact. For Kiev, the shortage of people in the army is problem number one. The Ukrainian authorities, to put it mildly, are not at all against bringing their citizens back home to fulfill, of course, their military duty. Write in the comments whether you think it's right or wrong. Should men be sent back or not? There are also new developments in Brussels. The European Union has agreed not to automatically extend protection for men of conscription age anymore, leaving specific decisions to the individual European countries. Well, for example, the Czech Republic has already made its decision. Conversely, the Polish leadership has taken a highly pragmatic stance. Diplomatically nod at meetings in Brussels, show off a bit, so to speak, and talk about the need to encourage fulfilling one's duty to the motherland. That's something we can do. But to take on the dirty work, to go chasing hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians around with batons, right? To organize what in our own cities? What are we going to organize? Coercive actions. We, the Polish government, absolutely do not want this. So what we get is a telling picture. Loud speeches about supporting an ally are confronted by the harsh reality of administrative practice. You can use soft measures or apply pressure with paperwork. But turning their police into roving draft office squads? No, thank you. We are not going to do that. Well, that's the current position of the Polish government. Let's see what happens a year after the elections. The debates around the current government's statements hadn't even died down yet when another loud initiative came from the opposite side. The Law and Justice Party, at its convention, which took place on August 6th, unveiled a large-scale project. To deport from Poland all Ukrainian men of conscription age who do not have official employment, well, the patriots will applaud. Moreover, to implement this idea, it has been proposed to create special deportation centers so that the process goes without delays. As stated by the vice chairman of PIS, Tobiasz Bakanitsky, let those who are in the gray area or not working go and defend their homeland. Well, let's blow away all this fluff and break down this turn of events. From the perspective of political struggle, we are dealing with an absolutely classic playbook. The opposition takes a sharp social issue on which the current authorities' positions are, let's say, ambiguous, but it offers a radical, seemingly simple solution. Not working officially? Now go home then. It sounds loud and punchy. It'll go over great with the so-called patriotic electorate during the pre-election rallies. But if we look at the practical side, a huge number of questions arise. First of all, identifying the so-called informal economy is a complex administrative task that requires enormous resources. Secondly, creating infrastructure such as special centers and carrying out mass deportation procedures runs up against legal constraints both of Polish law itself and of the European Union. As a result, we are witnessing how the topics of mobilization and the status of migrants are finally, irreversibly, turning into the main and only political football. We'll have to deal with this football game until next September. Some talk about soft measures without forceful pressure, while others come out with slogans to deport these Ukrainians. Let them defend their homeland, their Batkivshkina, although at the same time they say there is no war there. They need to make up their minds. That's the pre-election math we have, friends, based on reality. Well, that's not the end yet. We've just received fresh data from an IBRIS sociological survey for Radio Z, which clearly shows the psychological and social moods within Polish society. And what picture do we get here? A vivid picture. In the event of a real military threat, only 27% of those surveyed are ready to volunteer to go to the front, while 58%, 58, that's 6 out of 10, gave a firm, direct no. I think that when and if, God forbid, the first ballistic missile and a couple hundred Shaheds hit Poland, I believe that number, those 27%, will decrease. At the same time, most people also do not plan to leave the country. 69% intend to stay at home, although 60% are genuinely afraid of provocations from abroad. I wonder, who could provoke it? Well, obviously it must be Ukraine attacking. Who else? So friends, write in the comments what you think. Will the Poles go to the front or not really? And now, let's connect this indicator with the topics we discussed above or earlier, depending on how you look at it. Let's add a bit of psychology to this. I've read a few books, so does that make me a psychologist now? Recall the government's stance, with Minister Simonyak opposing the forcible roundup of Ukrainian conscripts and PS's vocal pre-election proposal to deport the unemployed. And from a psychological point of view, this is a classic example of cognitive dissonance and psychological defense mechanisms. That's the main thing. The instinct of self-preservation versus a high level of anxiety. On one hand, the level of fear of a potential threat is growing in society. Well, because in European societies, not just in Polish society, no one is ready or willing to fight. On the other hand, basic defense mechanisms kick in. Personally risking your life and going to the trenches, well, there are very, very few people willing to do that. So, what needs to be done? You need to shift the responsibility. That is, transfer it. When a person has an internal conflict like, damn, I'll have to go to the front, that's scary, I don't want to put myself at risk, but the mind looks for the simplest way out. Shift this onto someone else. Well, and politicians, I think they have that kind of image, but they know a bit about psychology, they're pragmatists, and they sense these mass subconscious demands. The government is balancing, understanding that harsh coercive measures inside the country will trigger psychological backlash, extra anxiety and social tension among their own electorate. Their own voters may start wondering, all the Ukrainians are gone, so now what? What will we do with all this hatred? Who will go to the front if needed? The opposition addresses these fears with a formula. Let the Ukrainians solve this problem instead of you. They propose deporting those who are not working. They give their average Joe psychological relief and a convenient illusion of justice. Well, why not? They were attacked after all. They must and are obliged to defend themselves. And the farther away we are, the better it is for us. As a result, it's a very clear picture. Politics and sociology here go hand in hand with the laws of human psychology. Polish society is not ready to put itself at risk, not ready to die. They are quite willing to support the idea of shifting all this emotional and practical burden onto whom? Onto the Ukrainians. My God, you've been getting killed there for 5 years, and they'll just keep doing it. That's the harsh psychology of real politics. And here we have a very interesting case from Gdansk coming up, right? Well, let's not dwell on it. In short, it's just an everyday story. The story is that a 37-year-old citizen of sunny Poland who was intoxicated started a conflict at some regular city dakas during a gathering when he heard something in the passerby's Eastern accent. And it all ended with the police arriving, his arrest for drunk driving, and a whole bunch of criminal charges, from hooliganism to insulting someone based on their nationality. In short, he heard that 3 people were talking. One of them had an Eastern accent and he wanted to beat him up. Well, that's the kind of folk entertainment we're dealing with. And then the Ukrainian guy ran away, the one with the Eastern accent. 2 people were left, the father and the son. And basically this 37-year-old drunk broke the father's arm. Well, that's some friendly fire for you. And by the way, both the father and son who got hurt are Polish citizens. That's how it is, friends, friendly fire. There's no other way to put it. Well, what we have here is a classic reaction. This is what psychology calls displaced aggression, or just displacement. Yes, displacement is a much simpler term. When a person is in a state of intoxication, whether from alcohol, psychological stress, or accumulated personal troubles, their internal self-control is completely switched off. The brain looks for an external target to instantly release internal tension, personal grievances, or the misery of everyday life. Well, of course, any external news becomes a convenient trigger. But in this case, it was an Eastern accent. At that moment, what happens to a person? Stereotypes kick in, and he finds himself an enemy. Well, obviously, it's just pathological, completely pathological. Unfortunately, there's more and more of this craziness. Yes, the law enforcement and judicial system, well, it seems like they reacted, detained him, did some examinations, restricted his freedom. Maybe they'll even pin some criminal charges on him. But the saddest thing, friends, in my opinion, is that people like him, who are definitely not our friends, develop an internal illusion of being right. Because this background noise that's been created in the information space, plus xenophobic stereotypes, apparently give him the feeling that his aggression is somehow justified. Well, yes, that's how this kind of everyday irrationality works. And unfortunately, the further it goes, the sadder it all sounds. And unfortunately, I'll repeat, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning, because actually, no, it's just the flowers, the flowers. I misspoke. It's just warm here, that's all. This is just the beginning. The worst is yet to come. They'll come after the elections if, God forbid, PS wins them, and if they form a political force together with the Confederation. If they even get a majority, of course, things will get really tough. Let's hope that at that moment it's best to be as far away from sunny Poland as possible, at least just across the border. I don't know. Write your opinion in the comments, friends, about what's happening. But in my opinion, the trend is really not cool. So, friends, that's all for now. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Big greetings to the working class, to turners, millers, loaders, computer guys, everyone. Yes, if I didn't mention your profession, please correct me, or rather, not correct, but add it in the comments. Dennis. Say hello to gynecologists, say hello to dentists. To your health. That's all for now. See you next time.